published in the Vancouver Courier. She has also had her poetry published in 4 and 20, Resurrectionist Review, Translink Buzzer, Skive Magazine, and Kind of a Hurricane Press. She currently works at the BC Teachers Federation and lives in Vancouver. And I want you to know that I live vicariously through Bonnie's status updates on Facebook. All her travel and her cooking. Come on up, Bonnie. And the poets are all having their feature debuts here today.
Thank you so much for asking me to read here today, Francie. And thanks to all of you for being here. My first 3 poems are sonnets about San Francisco and Sausalito. This first sonnet, Chinatown Conversations, was published in Resurrectionist Review several years ago. Chinatown Conversations. After I got off the number 45 bus at Stockton and Broadway, I conversed in a mainland China dialect with 2 elderly men who served hot dishes displayed from the window of their cafe. I ordered tofu with shiitake mushrooms, peas, then went across the street for har gao's sumai dumplings, shrimp rice rolls, lotus leaf wrapped sticky rice squares to have later at my hotel room's kitchen. I spoke my ancestors' dialect again on my last morning there when I visited Golden Gate Fortune Cookie Factory, where a thin tube squirts out tablespoons of batter onto miniature round griddles to bake, be lifted off, mechanically hand-folded, enclosing my customized hand-printed fortunes. And when I bought a 3D acrylic paperweight of Golden Gate Bridge depicting sailboats on the bay. And this second sonnet is about Lotta's Fountain in San Francisco. This historical cast iron fountain was constructed in San Francisco prior to 1875, and it was the meeting point for victims of the April 18, 1906 earthquake. Every year on April 18 at 5:12 a.m., locals congregate here and commemorate the anniversary of this earthquake. It is named Lotta's Fountain after former New Yorker Lotta Crabtree, who donated the cast pillar to San Francisco 10 years after the quake. The fountain is located at the junction of 3 famous streets, Market, Kearny, and Geary. I made a point of looking for and finding this fountain during a visit to San Francisco several years ago, and this is a sonnet I wrote. Lotta's Fountain. Lotta's Fountain was a site where quake survivors met their families and friends. Each quake anniversary is still honored here. During the 5:12 a.m. ceremony, when sirens wail, a wreath is laid. Earthquake whistles are blown, their shrieks astound. When all falls silent, after the shrills fade, church bells ring while alarms sound. I chanced upon this bronze sculpture one year, marveled over its 4-sided fountain base, rusted over lion head spouts, one on each ornate square. Read the faded plaque on the concrete base until a bus nearly grazed me taking photos of the fountain in downtown San Francisco. And this third sonnet is about Sausalito. It's one of my favorite cities I go visit whenever I'm in San Francisco. Sausalito. In Tiburon for my 30th birthday, Guemas was where I dined on Mexican food. I snapped a photo before we docked at Sausalito, where a busker played guitar, his sunglass dachshund on his lap. Instead of taking the hour-long stairways walk to end up at the top of Excelsior Lane, I cheat. Walked up the Excelsior stairs in the same block as the Plaza Vina del Mar. Down the street, I bought Swarovski ornaments from the Christmas store, salivated over provolone cheese, Genoa salami, sipped Chardonnay as I sat along Bridgeway's shore, after I bought specialty teas from Venice Deli. Across from me was Angel Island, to my right, San Francisco. I always smile when I visit Sausalito. And these two poems were published in 4 and 20, and 4 and 20 is a journal in Portland, Oregon, that publishes poems of a maximum of 4 lines and containing no more than 20 words. So it's very challenging. Heart House. Slug-covered paths, dog walkers. Children pick blackberries. Our anniversary lunch. Shatari pasta. New Zealand wine. Grapefruit sorbet. Silverfishes. Silverfishes wiggle over the range. Kitchen counter. One dropped from the kitchen light onto my arm as I slice bread. And then these two next poems are about beaches or a tropical themed destination. And the first one is a sonnet called Sandpiper Beach, which is on Hornby Island. Sandpiper Beach. Oyster shells bond to barnacle rocks. Lime green moss covers stones like grass. Tiny salmon pink crabs burrow in sand, surrounded by shell bits like glass. Upon marsh lettuce-like seaweed, sea stars hide under slabs of driftwood. 5 hungover shale layers, 3 perch on a lichened stone, another 2 submerged in murky water. 1 was indigo. From home and work, I was 3 ferries far, mesmerized by the ocean in solitude. As I stared at these purple sea stars, their prickly arms reached out to me on Sandpiper Beach. And this second poem was published just last year in kind of a hurricane press of Sun and Sand anthology, and it is called Tropical Tempest. And it was written during a vacation in Hawaii 2 years ago when they had terrible weather. Tropical Tempest. Flash floods warnings in Kauai and Oahu. In Honolulu, the rains got heavy, pouring off corrugated steel roofs like waterfalls. A maid dashed across my hotel's poolside, carrying fresh towels under her umbrella. Along slippery rock surface sidewalks, pedestrians dodged puddles alongside curbs, their sandal feet soaked. One night, claps of thunder sounded like explosions. Lightning flashes turned skies bright. Deserted beaches, restaurant patios closed. Definitely not paradise. And these next 2 poems, Silly Pranks and April 1st, 1989, were also just published last year for Sky Magazine's April Fool's Day and Other Foolishness issue. And I think it's kind of fitting because April Fool's Day is coming up next week. Silly Pranks. Tired of our supervisor mooching candies from people's desks, I planted stale candies, warned colleagues not to eat these. Hardened spearmint leaves, foil-wrapped chocolate eggs that my friend found in her boot, which got missed from her Easter loot. One evening, I drove with my friend to a colleague's apartment, pressed her apartment buzzer, tried to keep it taped down. After I drove back home, I phoned the colleague repeatedly. Hanging up, was entertained from her complaints the next day. I'd claimed a vacant locker. The previous renter left an angry note to demand I return their locker. I'd found another locker. I gave theirs back, but first, I poured in a jar of frothy chicken broth, eggs, salad dressing, vegetable oil, mayonnaise, ketchup, mustard, dried parsley, slammed the door shut. I left them a note. Here's your locker back. Enjoy the mess. Watch them open the locker. My friend, a university student, after her class, took a peek that night, wrote me a note that she loved it, how it looked like bird shit. My student residence neighbors had a party which kept me awake. As they slept, I poured my concoction along the bottom of their door. It seeped onto their carpet, leaving permanent stains. And this one is called April 1st, 1989. After my move to Vancouver, I dated a former Calgarian. We shared a past, but we would not last. Stressed from studying, irritated, he dumped me, April Fool's Day, leaving notes behind for me to find, outlining reasons why he should dump me. My crooked teeth, curved spine. I should have left him first. He was a vegetarian. I was a carnivore. He liked to hike through wilderness. I preferred the city. He was a botanist, soil scientist. I was a secretary. And the next two poems are haikus, and I'm just keeping them to two. Francie suggested that if I'm going to read haikus, to keep them to two.
No, I meant you should read a haiku twice.
Oh, read a haiku twice.
Repeating it.
Oh, okay. I have three here actually. So should I read all three?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So this one, first one's about purple purses. I went through a phase where a lot of women were carrying purple purses, and I decided I wanted to buy myself one. Purple purses. After admiring two women's purple purses, I bought myself one. And then these next two are about two friends that I had lost contact with. One of them's named Violet. Violet. After 10 years of losing touch, it was great to meet again today. And the second one's called Lily. 2 years since we saw each other. 1 year since we've talked. Are we still friends? And my final poem is called A Crowded Calgary Mall, which I began writing a week ago while I was in Calgary, from feeling overwhelmed by Calgary's increasing size and my feeling overcrowded in Market Mall. And I just finished writing this poem just this morning while I was up on Grouse Mountain. A crowded Calgary Mall. How quickly my mood changed from content after my milestones brunch to testy towards the bay clerk over a top I thought was 30% off. Their deceiving, confusing signs made me resent their signs. Why did they hang regular price items next to those on sale? When I told the clerk I would pay by gift card and probably cash for the difference, insisted I do not wish to get a Bay credit card, told her I only use Air Miles credit cards. She explained how my HBC rewards card transfers purchase amounts to Air Miles, which I already knew. My son said I was rude. I said I wasn't trying to be. I offered to apologize. I walked out of that store, grew annoyed by the overpopulation inside the mall that sunny afternoon. I walked wide circles around strollers, dodged large groups of people, received wrong directions from a clerk for the entrance nearest to the wine store. When a real estate kiosk staff who understood my exasperation from my son, my wasted time from the wrong directions, was able to redirect me, I bought relief in cupcake Chardonnay with angel food cake flavors that I shared with my aunt and uncle later. Thank you very much.
So you see what I mean, why I enjoy her Facebook status updates. If it's not wine, it's her own cooking or her travel. And well, so Bonnie, the poem I have for you is about travel. And you know I've been in Argentina for 4 months, and people know that. So this morning on the CBC, they had somebody was talking about various memorials for musicians and entertainers who had died young, and they mentioned Carlos Gardel and Buenos Aires, and so I thought I'd bring that poem for you because I'm sure you'll be there someday, and maybe we'll be drinking wine together. I don't know. Maybe I'll be giving that poem. For Carlos Gardel, 1892 to 1935. So he was 43 when he died. When your plane crashed in Colombia, a woman in Cuba took her life. In Puerto Rico and New York, 2 tried with poison. They didn't even know you. A 14-year-old heard you on the radio his first day in Argentina, 30 years after your death. He heard the feelings, didn't need the words. Carlos Gardel, the most famous tango singer, people not even born then feel the passion, know the loss. Born in France, only 2, you came to Argentina with your mother. She did laundry. You stole fruits and vegetables in El Mercado de Abasto. When they heard you sing, they gave you what you needed. Money, too. Called you El Morocco de Abasto, their sparrow, and El Zorzal Criollo, the Creole thrush. With folk songs, then tango, your own creations, you toured South America, Europe, the US too. Made records for decades. Movies, many movies. Your tenor voice, your talent, endure on old recordings. Carlos Gardel, lost so young, your famous face decorates Buenos Aires. So that's that. And now in the middle, and then the sandwich, to keep her nice and warm because she's,